Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Welcome to another episode of Haqiqatjou, where we discuss religion and politics, the two least controversial subjects. As always, I am your host, Daniel Haqiqatjou, and we have a good episode for you today discussing a lot of the developments that are developing in the Middle East, especially in the past couple of days, with Donald Trump, the US president, going on a tour to the Gulf. And I know we haven't really had a show in a while. I was actually preparing for a debate and other issues that have come up over the past 2 weeks. So there's a lot of news that we haven't really touched upon. There was almost a full-blown war between India and Pakistan, which has had some interesting ramifications, but it didn't ultimately escalate. A ceasefire was reached. If you guys are interested in an analysis of that, just let me know in the comments, inshallah, and maybe we can touch on that and Kashmir next week. But I've been preparing for a debate. I have a debate with a Hindu coming up this Friday, inshallah. Friday, if you're in the Western Hemisphere, it's going to be Saturday morning if you're in the Eastern Hemisphere. But inshallah, it'll be a good debate. Very relevant to India versus Pakistan. Is Islam or Hinduism more violent? We're going to debate this question with a Hindu practitioner. There was a Hindu that had agreed to debate and then backed out in a very cowardly way. I was kind of looking forward to debating this Hindu lady, but it didn't work out. She backed out of it. So, qadarullah, things, there's been a lot of Hindus that have backed out of debates with me and other groups. So it's no surprise there, but inshallah, we will have a very good debate for you in 2 days. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you'll get a notification when we're live. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. This is very important because this is how we can stay in touch with you. If for some reason we get banned on social media, we need to have a way to contact you. So subscribe to the newsletter, and you can find the link to that in the description of the video below. So this is going to be an episode where we discuss the developments in the Middle East, and there's just so much to talk about, really, that we haven't really addressed in previous episodes. Obviously, there is the continuing genocide happening in Gaza. Every day, dozens of Palestinians are being slaughtered. And now Netanyahu, in the past 2 days, has announced that nothing is going to stop the IDF from a ground invasion in Gaza. This is a ground invasion meant to move all of the Palestinians in Gaza into a small area, and then from that small area, they're going to be expatriated, taken out of Gaza and moved to different countries. Which countries, we don't know yet. We don't know which countries are going to take what is according to conservative estimates, 1.8 million or 1.7 million Palestinians. Of course, the original population of Gaza before October 7th was 2 million, but because of a genocide, roughly 300,000 Palestinians have been murdered due to not only direct killing by the Israeli occupation force, but also due to starvation, things like malnourishment, things like not having clean water. This is a genocide. So this is, and even if someone wants to quibble about whether this technically meets like the Western definition of genocide, it certainly meets the definition of ethnic cleansing, because Israel wants to ethnically cleanse all of Palestine, which is including Gaza and the West Bank. And they want to move the Palestinians out, and whoever doesn't move is going to be exterminated. And Netanyahu has recommitted. There will be a ground invasion like we have never seen before to cleanse the Gaza Strip. And there's nothing that's going to stop that. Now, people have been a little bit confused lately because Donald Trump, or at least his administration, has given signals that they are opposed to Netanyahu and that there's actually a break. There's a break between Netanyahu and the Trump administration. And a lot of Muslims have seen this as, oh, this is great news. A lot of nationalists have been very happy. Okay, see, we knew that Trump had a backbone. We knew that Trump wasn't going to let Netanyahu and the Israeli lobby just walk all over him. This is the kind of America First president that I voted for. You have that kind of sentiment. But this is all a simple ruse. This is just a political diversion to distract what is actually happening behind the scenes. And I'll explain what I mean by that. But for those who fell for this, like, just get yourself together. Like, how can you be so easily fooled? You think that Donald Trump, who owes his entire second presidential term to these Zionist donors and the Zionist powers that allowed him to run in the first place, and the multi-million-dollar donations, the billionaires, the Jewish Zionist billionaires who funded his campaign, people like Muriel Edelson, Bill Ackman, etc., you think that those powers are going to let Donald Trump just go off the reservation and do whatever, go rogue, and suddenly start opposing Netanyahu? You honestly think that that's what's going on? And there was this news story that was released that, Donald Trump is no longer on speaking terms with Netanyahu. He doesn't like the fact that he's being manipulated by Netanyahu. And there was another case of the U.S. agreeing to stop bombing Yemen. It was announced. Donald Trump actually said it himself that we've come to an agreement with the Houthis. We are not going to bomb them, and they're not going to target our ships. And this was supposed to represent this is a break, because the Houthis did not agree to stop bombing the Israeli ships or any shipping going to Israel. They didn't agree to stop the bombing of those ships, but they're not going to bomb American ships. And the United States is okay with that. And the United States is okay with that. So, okay, well, now we're seeing a break. We're seeing daylight between the Trump administration and the Israeli government. This is big news. This is really significant. And is this like a sign for the future that we're going to finally get the White House to be independent from Israeli influence, and Israel will have to fend for itself? If you really thought that for more than half a second, then I'm sorry, like, you need to get your brain checked. This is just beyond implausible that there could be any daylight between this Trump administration, and Donald Trump has filled his administration with the most hardcore Zionists, whether Jewish or non-Jewish, and then suddenly, 4 months into his presidency, he's going to take a different direction. If Donald Trump really were serious about putting pressure on Netanyahu or showing any kind of divergence with Netanyahu's plan or agenda, if there was any possibility of that, all he needed to do was to continue the ban that Biden had placed on the 2,000-pound bombs being shipped to Israel. Donald Trump could have continued that, or he could have said, look, we don't agree with Netanyahu wanting to prolong this war in Gaza. In fact, Netanyahu is the one who broke the ceasefire that my administration worked so hard to broker. This ceasefire, what Joe Biden couldn't accomplish, I was able to accomplish before my inauguration. I secured a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. In 3 phases, we were going to have a permanent ceasefire. And then Netanyahu backed out of that and continued the bombardment of Gaza. If Donald Trump were serious about peace which he claims he all he wants is peace, he would have said, okay, I'm actually going to roll back, or I'm going to roll out this halt on the shipment of 2,000 bombs to Gaza, or to Israel, to the IDF. But he didn't do that. He's not planning to do that. So what does that tell you? But what is actually happening? Like, what is the real agenda? What is Trump actually trying to do by putting his administration, planting these stories of a break with Netanyahu in the news media? And you see a lot of the right-wing Zionist pundits repeating like this line that, oh, see, now finally Trump is prioritizing American interests over Israel. This is good news. Why are they all shilling this narrative? We'll talk about that, inshallah, later in the show. So I want to talk about the big news is that Trump yesterday was in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Today he's in Qatar, and then he's going to eventually, tomorrow the day after, he's going to be in the UAE. And the whole story of this tour that Donald Trump is making in the Middle East is to strengthen economic ties, to make massive multi-billion-dollar and in some cases trillion-dollar economic deals with these countries. And this is what everyone is talking about, that being really the highlight of his tour. But what has also come to light is that Ahmad Shara from Syria, the Syrian president, was in Riyadh as well and met with Donald Trump. They had a meeting, and in a speech that we're going to look at some clips of in just a moment, Trump says we're going to lift the sanctions off of Syria. No more sanctions that have been placed since 2010, 2011 on Syria. Those are going to be lifted. And you have all of these, whether they're Syrian nationalists, whether they're Medkhalis, whether they're Arab supremacists, or some of these Baathists, they're celebrating. This is a great development. Look, mission accomplished. We are seeing the dawn of a new Middle East. This is exactly what we wanted. And then they're posting this photo of Donald Trump smiling from ear to ear with MBS and with Jolani, with Ahmad Shara next to him. And this is a huge accomplishment. This is exactly what we wanted. This is what we wanted the whole time. So this is just unbelievable, because if you've been following Haqiqatjou, you've been following the channel, you know that I've been skeptical from day one of Jolani. I've been skeptical of this so-called blessed revolution that has been celebrated. You had all of these Western du'at, these American, UK speakers and du'at celebrating, like, oh, the blessed revolution. That's what they call it. This is the blessed revolution. And I said, wait, hold on. Blessed revolution. There are some major red flags here. There are some major red flags. Back in December, Jolani is able to completely just run unopposed from Idlib all the way to Damascus with barely any opposition and just take over the country. And the biggest red flag are all of these Zionist outlets, the Zionist media that are promoting Jolani, praising Jolani, and they all use the same talking points. He is a reformed former terrorist. He was affiliated with Al-Qaeda. He was affiliated with ISIS. He's turned a new leaf. This is a new tolerant Jolani. And CNN interviewed him. He was profiled in all of the Zionist media. You had think tanks in Washington, D.C., Zionist think tanks like the Washington Institute, saying that Jolani is going to bring a new era in Syria, and this is actually good for the U.S. This is good for the U.S., and subtext being that it's good for Israel. So these are all some major red flags. And anyone who is not emotional and deluded by this kind of emotional sentiment would have seen those red flags and said, yeah, I agree that Assad was a brutal dictator. He killed Muslims. Assad should be opposed. Assad should be removed because of the hundreds of thousands of Muslims that he has been responsible for killing and massacring and destroying the entire country. We're happy about the fact that he's removed, but let's not hitch ourselves to this Jolani bandwagon immediately. Let's give it a wait. Let's see, because he has all of these red flags. And then what were these people saying in response to that? What were the fanboys saying to me? What were these electronic flies saying to me? Is that, oh, Daniel is just an Assadist. Daniel is just a Rafidi shill, an Iranian agent, blah, blah. All of this slander, all of these lies, for just making a very simple point that when we look at the history of the Middle East, you have to be cautious who you trust. And you have to look at not the promises, the flowery language, the rhetoric. No, don't look at the rhetoric. Look at who this person is associated with. Look at who is praising this person and who is platforming this person. Who is paying this person? Who does this person seem like he's affiliated with? That is going to be a much more critical deciding factor on the future decisions and actions of this politician or this political figure or this warlord taking over the country. That's the non-emotional, objective way to evaluate whether Abu Muhammad Jolani or any other political figure is actually going to be different than what we've had in the Middle East for decades. Which is what? Which is one Western-backed tyrant after another. One Western-backed tyrant after another that cares more about the interests of Israel and Washington, D.C. than the interests of Muslims. These are Western. That's what makes them tyrants. If you had a strong dictator who was making decisions on the basis of the interests of his own people, the people of his country, even that, like, forget about making decisions on the basis of Islam and Islamic values. Just make decisions on the basis of the interests of your own people. Can you do that? No, sorry. Best I can do is another Arab tyrant, another dictator who is going to prioritize what Washington, D.C. and Tel Aviv tell him to do. That's the best we can do. That's the best we can have in all of these Arab countries. That's the history, one after another. So if someone comes and tells me, oh, here is a break in the pattern, here is someone new, this is different, this is going to be completely different, we're going to have a glorious revolution, the blessed revolution in Syria, and Syria is going to be this Islamic state, this Islamic government that's going to allow the flower of Sunni Islam to bloom in the Middle East. Finally, if you were to tell me that and to promise that, I wouldn't listen to the rhetoric. I would look at, okay, who is this brilliant man, this brilliant Muslim man who is going to usher in the next golden age, and who is he actually affiliated with? Who is actually praising him? Who is actually propping him up? That's what I would look at. And that's what I did. We looked very closely. There were multiple episodes, multiple videos that we put out, and we put out all of the red flags. Now, since then, since December, things have only gotten worse. And I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I said, look, these are red flags, but I'm going to withhold judgment. I'm not going to make one of these kinds of sweeping claims that Jolani is just a CIA asset. Jolani is just an agent being directed by Mossad. I didn't make those kinds of sweeping claims. I said, let's wait and see. And let his actions be the determinant of whether we put our support behind him or not. It's a very reasonable position. It was a very reasonable position to take. A rational position to take. rather than being swept up in these false emotions. But ever since then, things have gotten worse and worse and worse. Sure, there were a couple of positive signs that I pointed out. I said, look, Jolani was able to broker a deal with the Kurds. That's a big deal. That shows that he's able to keep the country together and prevent it from slipping back into a full-scale civil war. He was able to quell the attempted coup, when Alawis from the West revolted and tried to initiate this coup. That was quickly dealt with. That's a good sign. That means that we can have a stable Syria, hopefully, without this kind of injection of sectarian violence that just boils out of control. Those are the kinds of positive signs. But then the negative signs, the negative actions just keep piling up higher and higher and higher. And there's no indication that the direction is going to change. So you have one of the major problems is the fact that Israel is within 20 miles, within 30 kilometers of Damascus. They've pushed into southern Syria. They're stationed in southern Syria. Forget about the Golan Heights. They're way past the Golan Heights. They're way past the buffer zone. They're pushing this so-called buffer zone further and further into Syrian territory. And what has been the Syrian government's response? Over and over again, not only Ahmad Shara, but also his ministers are saying, we don't want any trouble with Israel. You know, we'll only deal with this issue diplomatically. We do not want to use any force with Israel. Israel's security is guaranteed as far as we are concerned. We are not going to attack Israel to defend ourselves. We're not going to defend ourselves. And we're not going to allow anyone within our territory to attack Israel. This is what Jolani and his ministers and his government are saying. So this is a huge red flag. This is beyond a red flag. This is showing that he has completely capitulated to Israel's agenda. And now Israel has been bombing Damascus. They've been bombing very close to the presidential palace of Jolani himself. They are on a weekly basis bombing deep within Syrian territory. And again, there's absolutely no response. So what does this indicate? What does this tell you? So have that as the context of what we see this week, or what we see leading up to this week. You have Ahmad Shara going on this world tour, meeting with all the world leaders, all the right world leaders. He's going to France to meet with Emmanuel Macron. He met with Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian Authority president. He's meeting with MBZ in the UAE. He's meeting with MBS, taking these smiling pictures with all of these figures. So then people might wonder, well, what's going on here? Then you have U.S. congressmen, Zionists, hardcore Zionist congressmen going into Syria and meeting with Jolani, having these sit-down sessions with Jolani and discussing. And then there's things that are being reported about these meetings, about what Jolani is saying behind closed doors. And it's shocking. It's shocking. So I did a thread on Twitter on one of these congressmen named Corey Mills. And you can read this if you're interested. It's not too long of a thread. So he goes, and Corey Mills, this U.S. congressman, comes out from this meeting with Shara and says, yeah, Ahmad Shara is saying that he's open to joining the Abraham Accords under the right conditions. So this meeting happens, and then Corey Mills is a hardcore Zionist. He's in the weapons industry. He has his own weapons company. He's been investigated for conflict of interest because he's in Congress, but he also has his own weapons company that is also run by his wife. His wife is an Iraqi, expat Iraqi, who is also calling for the Abraham Accords. His wife in Iraq. So these are like hardcore Zionists. And then Corey Mills himself gets thousands of dollars from AIPAC. He was a soldier in Iraq himself. He was a decorated soldier. He got a Bronze Star. He was a sniper in Iraq. And he's a military contractor. And he's being invited and wined and dined by Jolani in Damascus. And then this congressman, Corey Mills, comes out and he says, yeah, Sharia is down for the Abraham Accords. So if you don't know what the Abraham Accords are, this is normalization with Israel. Full diplomatic and economic normalization with Israel. It means basically throwing Palestinians under the bus. We don't care what Israel does to Palestine. Israel can wipe out Palestine completely, genocide all of Palestine, whether it's in Gaza or the West Bank. But what's more important is our strategic, economic, and diplomatic ties with the Zionist state. That's what the Abraham Accords are. This U.S. congressman is meeting with Sharia, and he's saying that, yeah, he's down for it. He's down for signing on to the Abraham Accords and joining the other Abraham Accord countries, which include, obviously, Jordan and Egypt, but also the UAE, Morocco, Bahrain, and Sudan. Is Syria going to be part of this? Is Saudi going to be part of this? We're going to talk more about that possibility. Yeah, so here's his wife, Iraqi, escaped Iraq war. U.S. citizen. She was actually in Iraq during the Iraq war. She wasn't like some kind of refugee. She was working with the U.S. government to spy on Iraqis. Like, that's the kind of traitor this woman is. She married Corey Mills. Anyway, you can look at this thread. I brought a lot of research to expose this, but this is the kind of person that Jolani is meeting with. These are the honored guests that he has. So one of the things that was put to Jolani, 8 conditions. Let me fix this for you. So 8 conditions set by Washington for Syria in exchange for building trust and easing sanctions. So Washington, this is what Corey Mills is taking as a U.S. congressman to Jolani, saying, like, you want to ease U.S. sanctions, you want to have this kind of full economic normalization with the United States. Well, we're not going to do that for free. Why would we do that for free? You have to make us certain guarantees. And why wouldn't they? Obviously, like, who thinks that the U.S. is going to do anything out of the goodness of their hearts or out of principle? No, they're going to squeeze the maximum out of Syria. So here, look at some of these conditions for building trust, quote unquote, building trust. Formation of a professional army and not appointing foreign fighters in sensitive leadership positions. So what this means is, this is what America does for all of the countries in the Middle East that it has these full economic normalization with, is they build a military base. And that's really what this means, because if you have a professional army means an army that's been trained by the United States. And to train an army, the U.S. has to set up a base in your country that will house the personnel and the equipment that are going to do the training. So this is, once that base is set up to do that training, that's a permanent base. That's a permanent base that is just accepted. Like, this is the accepted army base within our country. And this is part of the security agreement that we have with the United States. So this is the first condition. If Syria wants to wants to the U.S. to lift these sanctions, they need to have a fully normalized base operating within their country, military base within their country. And of course, when you have a U.S. military base in your country and you have all these military personnel, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 military personnel in your country, a lot of them are going to be CIA. They're going to be intelligence assets. They're going to be monitoring your governmental officials. They're going to be monitoring different parties and factions within the country to make sure that there is nothing happening in your country that goes against U.S. and by extension Israeli interests. This is what it means to be occupied. And all of the Muslim countries, almost all of them in the world, are occupied by the U.S. because there's literally a military base that operates from within that country and uses force or the threat of force to control the governments of these countries. That's the situation that we're dealing with. Syria is now, this is the condition. And you can't have foreign fighters. What do you think that means? That means your military is going to be controlled by the United States. Your military is going to be controlled by the only reason that you have your own professional army is not so that you can go liberate Jerusalem, not so that you can fight for Muslims, not so that you can secure Muslim interests militarily. No, this professional army is like a militia for the United States, like a brown militia for the United States. And to make sure that there's no group in your country that's going to organize and rebel or try to take power or try to fight Israel or oppose Israel or any other allies that we have. So that's top of the list. That's top priority that you have to agree to. Obviously, the U.S. has to access all chemical weapons facilities and related programs. So you can't have any independent weapons capabilities. That goes without saying. So then these are some ISIS-related points that we won't get into. But the other critical thing, allowing the U.S. to conduct counterterrorism operations on Syrian territory against anyone Washington deems a threat to national security. So your whole country is going to be open season. If you have anyone in the country that the United States determines is a security threat, they have the right to drone strike. We will drone strike whoever we want in your country. Them's the rules. You also have to issue a general public declaration prohibiting all Palestinian organizations and political activities in Syria and expelling their members to ease Israeli concerns. You have to ease Israel's concerns, and you have to prevent Iran's entrenchment and classifying both the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and Hezbollah as terrorist organizations. So make sure that you have a clean break from Iran, have a clean break from the axis of resistance. That is absolutely necessary. You have to actually go further and prohibit any kind of Palestinian resistance group from operating in your country. And in fact, you have to go and arrest any Palestinian leader in your country and expel them because we need to ease Israeli concerns. And you need to open up your country to counterterrorism operations. Now, you understand what this means, right? If Syria adopts the counterterrorism agenda of the United States, forget about any kind of political Islam. Forget about conservative Islam. Just anticipate the same kind of repression of conservative Islam that we see in all these other Middle Eastern countries, all these other Arab countries with these tyrants who are operate the secret police, where if you post, for example, certain ayat of the Quran on your Facebook, the secret police might be knocking on your door and you're going to be disappeared. That is counter-extremism. That is counter-terrorism. And you're an imam and you want to give a khutbah on in the masjid, in the local masjid, and you recite certain verses of the Quran or you recite certain hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, guess what? You might be gone tomorrow. You might be disappeared somewhere tomorrow. That's what counter-extremism is. right? This is CVE, countering violent extremism, that was rolled out in a primitive form after 9/11, and then was expanded by Obama and rolled out across the globe. So Syria has to adopt it and implement it and enact and enforce it as a condition for lifting these sanctions. So this is coming from the U.S. government. This is coming from a key member of the U.S. Congress, Corey Mills. So then this is what is required to lift the sanctions. Now we have Trump announcing yesterday in Riyadh that the U.S. is going to lift sanctions. U.S. is going to lift sanctions. And when he said it, he put his hand on his heart and he said, "This is the things I do for you, MBS." And he basically he pointed to Mohammed bin Salman. So is this supposed to really give you a lot of confidence in the future of Syria? Is this supposed to really inspire? Now, I know that there are plenty of secularists, there are plenty of people, Syrians or otherwise, who really don't care about Islam. They don't care about Islam in Syria. And they sure as heck don't care about any kind of future Khilafah or Islamic governance even. There are those people. But what shocks me is that you have so-called Islamists, people who so-called care about the future of Islam and the preservation of Islamic values, who are so happy and are celebrating that Trump is going to lift sanctions on Syria. They're so excited. Like, oh, mission accomplished. We won. This is the blessed revolution, the fruits of the blessed revolution. Did you see those conditions? For all we can tell, it's guaranteed. All of those guarantees have been made. The government has privately, secretly, behind closed doors, agreed to all of those conditions. And it just hasn't been announced publicly. You're just going to be rudely awakened when these things are being rolled out. And they've already been rolled out because they've already started cracking down on Palestinian groups. Palestinian groups like the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PIJ. The leaders have been arrested. Some of the leaders have been arrested and deported. Their offices have been shut down. That was on the list. That was on the list. So people have this, they keep moving the goalposts. They keep moving the goalposts on what is really too far for Jolani and the new Syrian government. At first, this was unthinkable. Remember, they started out by saying that, well, we're just starting first Damascus and then Jerusalem. The blessed revolution is going to start with Damascus, and then the Mujahideen are going to roll out. They're going to roll out to Jerusalem. We're going to free the Palestinians. We're going to free Masjid al-Aqsa. This is the kind of delusional rhetoric that was coming out of the HTS and Jolani fanboys. But now, like, forget about, we're not even going to defend ourselves against encroaching IDF, encroaching Israel. We're not going to defend ourselves against Israel literally bombing our capital. We're not going to defend ourselves from that, let alone, have any kind of posture against Israel. In fact, we're opening our entire country up for the United States. So I'm just shocked at how delusional these people can be. And eventually, normalization with Israel, that's a foregone conclusion. That's a foregone conclusion. It's already, if you normalize economically with the United States, that is normalizing with Israel economically. Like, is there a meaningful distinction between normalizing with the United States, full economic normalization with the United States, and normalizing with Israel? Because it's not just that the U.S. has lifted sanctions. Ahmed Shara, the president, is inviting Donald Trump to build Trump Tower in Damascus. This is what was reported. And not only did the Syrian government not deny these reports, next day they're taking smiling photo ops with Donald Trump. So Shara is inviting Donald Trump to build Trump Tower in Damascus. Meanwhile, just earlier this year, Donald Trump was saying that, yeah, we're going to take over the Gaza Strip. And we're going to build a golden Trump Tower right in the middle of Gaza. We're going to have a beautiful beaches and hotels and casinos in Gaza when we take over. That's what Trump was saying a few months ago. Now, Ahmed Shara is saying we're going to build Trump Tower in Damascus. We're going to build a beautiful pillar of capitalism right in Damascus. And we invite the U.S. to come and invest in our oil and our petroleum infrastructure. Like, he's inviting full economic normalization of the U.S. That's essentially the same as normalizing with Israel economically. Like, this is the thing that people don't understand. It's not like normalization with Israel is something that's black and white. You're either normalized or you don't. It's a gradient. It's a spectrum. So even countries that haven't technically normalized with Israel, they haven't signed the Abraham Accords, that doesn't mean they have no economic and diplomatic relations with Israel. It's a gradient. And Saudi is the best example of that. Saudi Arabia has not signed on to the Abraham Accords. And they put the condition that, well, we're not going to sign the Abraham Accords until there is recognition of Palestinian statehood. You know, and they've left it very vague. And it seems like it becomes even more symbolic as time goes by. But that normalization with Israel is not preventing Saudi from signing a $140 billion arms deal with the United States and $1 trillion investment into AI. With Saudi, it was $600 billion, I think. $500 or $600 billion investment in AI in the United States. That's not technically a defense contract, but that AI is primarily going to be used for intelligence and military applications. That's what Saudi is really interested in with AI. So billions of dollars in weapons, one of the largest weapons deals signed ever, was signed yesterday. But that's one of the reasons that Donald Trump was in Riyadh, to sign this multi-billion-dollar weapons deal and to have this $500 billion investment agreed to, investing in the United States. Who do you think owns these companies? Who do you think runs these companies that are getting billions of dollars from Saudi Arabia? What do you think their religion is? What do you think their ideology is? You might think that they're Zionists. And the summit, where I'm going to show you a clip from the summit in just a second, this investment, U.S.-Saudi investment summit that happened yesterday, and Donald Trump gave a 51-minute long speech. You had the executive of BlackRock, hardcore Jewish Zionist. You had Elon Musk, the buddy of Netanyahu. He was there sitting right behind MBS. You had the CEO of NVIDIA, another hardcore Zionist. You had all of these Zionist CEOs, billionaires. You had Sam Altman, the Jewish Zionist CEO of OpenAI. These are the people that are sitting there with Donald Trump and MBS. And Shara as well, presumably, was in the city while this is all happening. So what's the difference between having full normalization with Israel versus allowing all of these Zionist companies to have strong economic control of your country? If Saudi Arabia has $1 trillion tied up with these Zionist companies that are all economically tied to Saudi Arabia, do you think that they're going to make political decisions that are going to threaten that money, those hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars? Do you think that they're going to make political decisions that could possibly harm any of those contracts or harm any of those economic ties? No. So these things go hand in hand. Politics and economics, politics and business go hand in hand. You really can't distinguish. And this is what some people don't understand. There's a spectrum when it comes to Zionist normalization, Israel normalization. Saudi doesn't need to sign a paper and say, yeah, we're signed on to the Abraham Accords. That's not required. Just doing the business deals, just opening up yourself to these kinds of economic ties and normalizing economically with the United States is enough. That's more than enough to be in the pocket and to be controlled by Israel. So people, I don't think they really understand this. If they did, they wouldn't be so thrilled about the US lifting sanctions and Ahmed Shara inviting US investment and U.S. involvement within their oil infrastructure and their economic infrastructure in general. They wouldn't be happy about that. And what makes it so ridiculous and so crazy is that, wasn't this the whole point of the Arab Spring? Wasn't the whole point of the Arab Spring to topple these Western-backed tyrants? These Western-backed tyrants who are making their billions of dollars at the expense of their own populations by agreeing to be backed by the United States in exchange for not only billions of dollars in investment, but also weapons. Also weapons that those tyrants then use to repress their population. Wasn't the whole point of the Arab Spring in 2010, 2011, 2012, wasn't this whole awakening to throw off these puppet dictators? Because people had enough. People of the Middle East had enough of the corruption. They had enough of these tyrants backing Israel against the Palestinian people. Wasn't that the whole point of the Arab Spring? And you had different factions. I remember, this was 15 years ago. I remember it very vividly how passionate these Arabs were. Like, oh, this is for freedom. And I remember one idiot that from Syria that was debating me on this. He was saying that, yeah, actually, freedom is more important than La ilaha illallah. Freedom is actually much more important than La ilaha illallah. Why? Because if you don't have freedom, you can't have La ilaha illallah. You have to have freedom. That's why the Syrian revolution, first and foremost, is about freedom. Yeah, we care about Islam too. We care about La ilaha illallah too. But first and foremost has to be about freedom and democracy. Free speech, democracy, liberty for all. That is that, and religious freedom. Don't forget about that. That's our number one priority. So you had more secular types like this, waving the banner of secularism. You had others who are more Islamist. No, this is jihad. We have to establish an Islamic state, Islamic government, khilafah. This is what we have to do in the Arab world. This is why we support the Arab Spring in all of these countries. And then we see what has happened. We see what has happened in these countries. It has been a complete disaster. These countries are economically far worse than they were before the Arab Spring. And there was someone who posted on Twitter a chart of this, like the GDP within Syria, according to the World Bank. The GDP in Syria was at its highest point right before the revolution in that country. It was over it was about $3,000 GDP per capita. And then you have the Arab Spring. But it's worth it, right? Freedom is worth it. Okay, we are willing to destroy the country and to fight ceaselessly, even after countless deaths, after turning the entire country into a crater. It is worth it for freedom. It is worth it for La ilaha illallah. It is worth it to overthrow these tyrants. That was the rallying call of these Syrian revolutionaries, the Syrian rebels. This is what they were selling to the entire ummah, that you have to support us because this is worth fighting for. Do you remember? For those of you who are old enough, do you remember that this is the rhetoric that they were using? And we had all the sympathy. We had all the sympathy for them and for the entire Middle East. Why? Because we all see the fact that these are tyrants. These are tyrants that are throttling their people, oppressing their people, stamping out Islam to make way for Western-backed secularism, Western-backed, quote-unquote, human rights and women's liberation. We see how these Western-backed tyrants are trying to secularize the Middle East and turn the entire Middle East into secular atheist region devoted to America and Israel. We all saw that. So yeah, we were sympathetic. We were in support. We were in support of change coming to the Middle East. But this is what they claimed, that it doesn't matter economically. Yeah, we're much poorer. Hundreds of thousands have been killed, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Now, those same people are celebrating, the lifting of U.S. sanctions, U.S. investment. This is a huge achievement for Ahmad Sharaa. This is a huge achievement for the Syrian revolution, this blessed revolution. We see the fruits of it now. It's like, wait a minute. If your whole bottom line was economic prosperity, economic stability, you had that before the Arab Spring. You had that in spades. Compared to now, if that was your whole goal, if that was your whole bottom line, then why even have an Arab Spring? Why even try to overthrow these Western-backed dictators? Why overthrow them? If that's what you're good with, apparently you're 100% okay with that. You're 100% okay with Jolani being, Ahmad Sharaa being backed by the West, opening up economic investment in Syria. You're perfectly fine with that. But that was the status quo that you tried to overthrow, that you rebelled against, that you had a revolution against in the first place. How does this make any sense? I haven't gotten an answer to that question. And these people, like, most of them are just electronic bots, so they just have regurgitated lines that they spit out. Oh, you're just the Iranian shill. Oh, don't you know that Iran also had a deal back in this date? Like, it's just a robot response, not actually engaging with the point. But yeah, tell me what was really the point of the Arab Spring? And the thing is that, fine, like in 2010, you actually had less of an excuse, or you had less of an excuse to normalize with the United States. Now there is absolutely no excuse for normalizing with the United States, because normalizing with the United States also means selling out the Palestinians. That's what it means in 2025 in the Middle East, to have this kind of really prosperous deal with the United States. It means that you're going to shut up about Palestine. You're going to shut up and allow it to happen, the genocide to happen, without helping, without providing any resistance, without actually doing something materially to stop the genocide. That's what it means. So that's even worse. Like, normalizing with the US and being backed by the US now is much worse than it was in 2010, 2011, when there wasn't a genocide of Palestinians actively taking place. So this is the kind of dystopia that we are dealing with. So and then what really bothers me is that I've been attacked constantly, relentlessly by these idiots. For what? All I have had is a very simple message that we need a pan-Islamic alliance. We need to prioritize alliance between Muslim countries rather than with the United States and Israel, and by extension, Israel. We need to prioritize Muslims coming together politically. Obviously, the ultimate ideal goal is establishing a khilafah, but a precursor or a stepping stone to the khilafah is to have a pan-Islamic alliance where Muslims, despite having difference in ethnicity, difference in race, and even difference in sect, come together and ally. And the first priority of that alliance is defense. To have strategic offense so that any outside force knows that if you attack Syria, if you attack Iraq, if you attack Bangladesh, if you attack Pakistan, if you attack Algeria, you have to deal with the entire Muslim world because there's an actual tangible security agreement that all of these countries have that prioritize their interests over the interests of outside forces. That's what it means to have a pan-Islamic alliance. It's not really that high of a bar. If you care about Islam, if you care about Muslims over non-Muslims, like it's not really that high of, in the abstract, theoretically, it's not really that high of a bar. But I was told that, no, Daniel, we can't have, what are you talking about, you Rafidi supporter, you Iranian agent, you shill, you Taqiyya doing Rafidi, Shi'i, whatever. We can't have a pan-Islamic alliance. Don't you know that Iran has blood on its hands, that Iran has killed this many Syrian Sunnis? Don't you know that Shi'i Lebanon cannot be trusted? Don't you know that the Houthis in Yemen cannot be trusted? These were the excuses that were made that to deny the possibility, to even the mere possibility of having a pan-Islamic alliance foreclosed by the fact that, number one, that means allying with the Shia, and that is completely unacceptable. Sunnis can never ally with the Shia under no circumstances. And then, I debated this. I literally had a debate, 2 versus 1, 2 retards versus me. And it was complete destruction, humiliation. Like they've just they've literally abandoned social media in the wake of that debate. And establishing that, no. This is what Sunni Islam, this is what Orthodox Islam actually says, that yes, even with the Shia, even scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah say that you have to prioritize allying with other Muslim sects over the disbelievers. And yes, even Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, considers the Shia to be Muslim, depending on which group of Shia. So that was established. I had a whole debate. You can go watch that. So that excuse, even if we accept the excuse that you can't ally with the Shia because the Shia are mushrikeen or the Shia are kuffar, etc., even if we conceded that, then the recent deal with the United States completely blows that out of the water. So you can ally with the United States. You can sign a contract and open up your country economically to the United States, the Christian, atheist, secular country, but you can't with Shia? How does that work? How does that work? So that was excuse number 1. Excuse number 2, Iran and these Shia, they have so much blood on their hands. And I pointed out, look, all of these Muslim governments have blood on their hands. All of these Muslim countries have killed Muslims in one form or fashion, including Sunni Muslims. I gave all of the statistics showing this. But how can you compare that with the United States? How much Muslim blood does the United States have on its hands? Not even considering the United States' enablement of Israel and Israel's killing of Muslims. Let's just focus on the United States. How much blood on its hand does the United States have? And again, these shills, these Arab supremacist shills who were denying the possibility of pan-Islamic unity and alliance with Iran or Lebanon or Yemen, when I put this question to them, they said, no, Syria can stand alone. Syria doesn't need alliance with anyone else. Then when the actual revolution happened in December, end of November and December, they changed their tune. No, Syria needs to make a deal with the United States. Syria needs to sign a deal, make an alliance with the United States. Suddenly, it doesn't matter how much blood you have on your hands. Suddenly, it doesn't matter if you have blood on your hands or not. Because the U.S. has the most, arguably the most blood on its hands. It's like maybe a two-way tie between the U.S. and Israel, depending on how you consider Israel's influence on the U.S. But who has more blood on their hands than the United States and Israel? So that excuse blown out of the water. The claim that, but we can't ally with Iran because they're secretly plotting. They have these secret plots to completely take over the Muslim world. And then you ask, these Iranians and the Shia, they have secret plot, but the United States doesn't? The United States doesn't have a secret plot? Like the pure-hearted, innocent United States, they only have intentions as white as snow. Is that really what you believe? So again, this is the inconsistency. It's just such a brazen inconsistency, a brazen double standard right in your face that it's just hard to believe. It's just hard to believe that you can't be that stupid. You must be a shill. Like, you must be being paid by the certain governments to promote this on social media, because you can't be that stupid. And that's really my genuine conclusion about some of these accounts. Like, they're just LARPing as Sunni traditionalists. In reality, they are these paid influencers that are running an influence operation. Because for any Muslim, if you are supporting what Syria is doing with the United States, how can you reject something that's far better for Muslims, which is this pan-Islamic alliance? Like, how can you be opposed to that? None of the excuses that you give to reject the pan-Islamic alliance would not equally or more so apply to alliance with the United States. Making deals and agreements, security guarantees with the United States, which is what Syria is doing, which is what Ahmed Shara is doing with the United States. And Israel. Even if they don't ultimately sign on to the Abraham Accords, which I think that they will. I think that it's very high probability that they will actually sign on to the Abraham Accords. Even if they don't do that, they're still making security guarantees to Israel. I'm just checking the news because it's possible that, because Shara gave a speech just maybe an hour ago or less than an hour ago. Maybe he already he's announced that normalization is going to happen with Israel. Maybe not. I don't see it in the news. But the point being that even if it doesn't officially normalize with Israel, de facto, like, that's pretty much what has already happened. They've already given security guarantees to Israel. We're not going to pose any threat, and we're not going to let anyone from our territory pose a threat to the state of Israel. In fact, you can occupy the south of our country, just 20 miles from Damascus, no problem. We're not going to oppose you. We're not going to allow anyone to fight you. We're not going to allow any foreign fighters to come and try to kick you out or threaten your soldiers or whatever. So the blessed revolution. Oh, this is such a blessed revolution, guys. So much prosperity is going to come. Like, and this is, again, the excuse, like, oh, Daniel, don't you want economic prosperity for the Syrians? Haven't the Syrians suffered enough? Sorry to say that the way that they're going, the suffering has just started. The suffering is just, it's going to get worse and worse. If alliance with the U.S. brought security, peace, prosperity, like, the Middle East should be the most prosperous place in the world. the Middle East, all of these countries in the Middle East, they should be thriving because all of them have the same deals. All of them have you know what a deal with the United States means? A deal with the United States means that the U.S. gets open access to your natural resources, and you get a military base that's going to be spying on your government and controlling and threatening your government from within the country. That's what a economic deal with the United States entails. And it means the active secularization of your country, because if you have any Muslim institutions like Islamic schools or preachers that are going to teach conservative Islam, those are going to be liquidated. Those are going to be suppressed to a high degree. Why? Because as soon as you allow preachers in your country to talk about Islamic values, conservative Islamic values, then the public sentiment is going to turn against the U.S. being so involved in your country and literally having bases in your country. Sentiment in the country is going to turn, the population is going to turn against you, the government, for allowing the United States to have a military base within your country and to do all of these economic deals to extract these resources for pennies on the dollar from your country. People are going to get pissed. They're going to be angry because as they become more religious, as they become more Islamic, they're going to rediscover an Islamic identity. They're going to rally around this idea of implementing Islamic law and Islam as a political force for doing dawah, for bringing justice to the world. Muslims are going to be more and more in favor of that, and that is a security threat against not only the United States, but Israel. This is why we can't allow conservative Islam in any country that the U.S. wants to do business with. So I'm simplifying to a certain degree because now we see kind of a two-tiered strategy. And the two-tiered strategy is that, well, and this mirrors actually the strategy that political power uses in the West in general, that you have two options. If you look at all of these Western countries, there are two options. There's the left liberal option, and then there's the right-wing option. In the United States, that means you have the Democrats on the left and the Republicans on the right. And the facade that's given is that these are two alternatives. You can either be a left-wing, and if you don't want to be left-wing, a political alternative to the left-wing is the right-wing. To be a Republican. And these two sides are opposed, and every election cycle, they're vying for your votes. You select through your democratic vote the direction of the country. Do you want your country to go left, or do you want your country to go right? You can't be more diametrically opposed than left and right. So choose. You have the power to choose the future depending on what you think is right. And as many have pointed out, like, this is just a facade, that the left and the right, they're all under this wider umbrella of liberal secularism. This is how I put it. This is how I explain it. Like, this is all just liberal secularism. You just have a left wing of that liberal secularism, and you have a right wing of this liberal secularism. They're not actually alternatives to each other. So when you vote for Donald Trump instead of Kamala Harris, or you vote for Kamala Harris instead of Donald Trump, you're not fundamentally going to see a change in the underlying system, which is liberal secularism. And as time goes on, the train of liberal secularism continues to march forward. This train that is set to destroy all religions, to destroy all human identities, to destroy all human values other than freedom and equality, to destroy the human family, to destroy all social and familial ties and marital ties. This liberal secular project, which we've discussed many times on MuslimSkeptic, that's a large part of my dawah, that train is going to move at full speed. The Republicans, the so-called right wing, the so-called conservatives, they're not an alternative to this system. They're just 5 years behind schedule. So in 2013, the left wing was pushing for gay marriage. The right wing said, no, we have a problem with gay marriage. Marriage is between a man and a woman. Then 2016 comes along, just 3 years later, a very short amount of time. And now suddenly the Republicans are saying, well, we agree with freedom for all, including homosexuals, including the gays and the lesbians. We agree. And then the left wing says, okay, great. Now we need freedom for the trans. And then the Republican, the right wing, the conservatives say, no. Gay marriage, that's just a part of freedom, but transgenderism, no, this is a bridge too far. Then you get to 2019, you get to 2020, and then the Republicans even go on to accept that. They say, well, if a man thinks that he's a woman and a woman thinks that she's really a man, well, that's in their freedom to decide that. But we draw the line on children taking hormone therapy and changing their gender. Children should not be gender transition. That's a bridge too far. While the left wing is saying, well, children also have the freedom to choose. So the Republicans, the conservatives, aren't really conserving anything. They're just controlled opposition. They're just taking all of the same liberal positions, just 2, 3, 4 years removed. 2, 3 years after the left wing takes on those positions, but the train of liberal secularism marches on and proceeds. The same kind of dynamic we see emerging in the Middle East. The same kind of dynamic. Because the value of the right wing is that as controlled opposition, it gives people who are otherwise Christian or conservative or more traditional, it gives them the false sense that their views are being represented in power. So it's a kind of a release valve. If that release valve didn't exist, that pressure from those more conservative Christians or traditional people, that pressure would build up with more resentment, with more dissatisfaction. They would grow to be increasingly angry and hateful by the fact that their entire country is being subverted. All of their traditions, their religion, their family values, literally the institution of the family is being subverted by this liberal secular force that is proceeding nonstop. They will develop a lot of anger, and that anger will bubble up. It'll cause political instability. It will cause threats against the ruling power, against the elites. So we need a release valve. We need to give these people the illusion that they're actually, things are moving in the right direction for them, or that there is an alternative for them. So we have this controlled opposition, which is the right wing, which is the Republican Party, for example. But the same kind of dynamic, for the same exact reasons, are cropping up within the Muslim world. You have the left wing, you can call it, the ones who are in the Muslim world, in the Arab world, in the Middle East, who are in favor of unhindered progress. We need to completely secularize. We need to have J-Lo concerts, Nicki Minaj concerts in the Haram in Mecca and Medina, and we need to have bikini shows, and we need to have full-blown atheism allowed and blasphemy allowed to be spoken in our countries. Like just full Western secularization, full Western normalization. You have that brand or that wing fully on board the liberal secular train. And then the alternative is like, no. We need to preserve Islamic heritage, and our women need to, not wear bikinis. Our women need to wear hijab, and we need to have, in all of our universities, you need to have an Islamic department. So yeah, we have all the STEM subjects, the science, the technology, the literature, but okay, we have a kulliyah dedicated to Islamic studies. We need to maintain our heritage with these beautiful masajid, these beautiful structures. We're gonna dedicate money toward building, these Islamic monuments with Islamic art. We need to preserve Islamic arts. We need to teach Arabic, teach the Quran. We need to have Quran competitions. But it's always this Islam that they're promoting is a sanitized Islam, is a Islam that is secularized. As long as you don't threaten the infrastructure of liberal secularism and the attachment and the domination of the West over these Muslim countries, then yeah, your wife can wear the hijab. You can put your kids in an Islamic school. You can go and visit and see these beautiful masajid, these Islamic sites. Islamic tourism is a multi-billion-dollar a year industry. You can have your halal food, no problem. Just don't step out of line. Don't become an extremist. Don't advocate for Islamic governance. Don't advocate for saving Palestinians from genocide. Don't advocate for armed resistance against the Palestinian genocide. Don't advocate for Islamic governance or khilafah. Don't advocate something crazy like, oh, women should not be going and following the feminist path of the West and becoming educated businesswomen. Don't advocate for anything like that. You know, the Islam that we accept means an Islam where, yeah, the women wear hijab and they go study science in the university and they become successful career women and successful business women and scientists, just like Khadija. Just like Khadija radiallahu anha. That's the kind of Islam that is allowed. So that becomes a release valve for a large portion of the conservative Muslim population. But the underlying system of liberal secularism is the same. So this is the future. If you look, and you can look at the Muslim world right now, and you can see which countries fall into which bracket. The countries that are going to push nonstop liberal secularism, the train's not going to stop, they're also the ones who are signing on to the Abraham Accords. They're also the ones that are the most open to investment from the United States, the most investment from Israel and Zionist companies. Because they're not even shy about it. They have acknowledged that there's no, really, Islam is not really in the picture, and solidarity with Palestinians or caring about Masjid al-Aqsa, like that's not in the picture at all. And then you see countries that aren't at that extreme, but they're also like, are you really providing an alternative? If there were really an alternative to these Gulf states, where is the resistance to Palestinian genocide? Like, who is really taking material steps to stop or halt or slow down the genocide of Palestinians? Who is actually materially, tangibly, concretely doing something? And you know, there was an axis of resistance. It's been pretty much eroded completely, almost destroyed. But put the axis of resistance, so-called, to the side, who else has done anything? If there really was, or really were, a true alternative to nonstop secularization, westernization, normalization with Israel, if there really were an alternative, now would be the time where we would see it. Now would be the time where we would see it. We would see tangible actions. How about something as simple as saying, yeah, we're no longer going to make shipments to Israel. No longer are we going to provide Israel with all of this petroleum, all of this oil and gas. We're going to turn off the spigot. No more. We're going to actually limit our economic ties with the United States to punish the United States for providing these weapons to the IDF, which is bombing our Muslim brothers and sisters. How about we not only limit our economic ties with the United States, we put a timeline in place that, hey, you can no longer have a base in our country. You can no longer have a military base in our country, the United States, as long as the Palestinians are being genocided. We need a timetable for your exit out of our country. We don't see anyone doing that. So what is this alternative that we're supposed to believe exists? Like the trad alternative, the Islamic alternative. Where is that? I'm waiting to see something like that. You don't even have to say no economic ties with the United States at all. We're going to just completely cut off. Because ultimately, I think there is room for something pragmatic, like pragmatic deals to happen with the United States. The problem, however, is that all of these deals that are being made by these Middle Eastern countries, okay, and not just Arab countries, non-Arabs as well, the deals that they're making at this time are coming at the expense of the Palestinians, and there's absolutely no indication that they want to pressure the United States and Israel to stop the genocide. That's the scandal. If they were making deals with the United States and they were also pressuring, like real tangibly having effect on preventing a genocide of Palestinians, okay, then at least this is, your heart's in the right place. At least you're doing something. But they're not doing anything. It's just lip service. It's just rhetoric. So who's falling for this is my question. Are you falling for this? So that is my thoughts on economic normalization with the United States. And I don't want the show to get too long, so I just want to make one more point or one more topic, and then we'll look at your super chats. If you have a super chat, just put it in there. If it's relevant, I'll read your super chat and I'll answer your questions, inshallah. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Maybe feedback. So what is the status? Oh, there's two more points that I want to make, actually. Here, let's go to this, because I keep talking about this Saudi summit, and I don't actually... I wanted to play this clip. It's just, like, very indicative of what's happening and the bigger problem. Donald Trump had this 51-minute speech in Riyadh, and you had all these elites in the audience and in the front row. And Donald Trump is, unlike other presidents, he doesn't talk about American values of freedom and equality and women's liberation. Like, that's not his style. He's pure business. He talks about economic prosperity. He talks about military might. He talks about how he's just so much more effective of a president, of a ruler than his predecessor, Biden and Obama. This is how he talks. So that's interesting that it's just very to the point. Like, he's not trying to pretend like America's interest in the Middle East is because of some higher ideals of freedom and equality and democracy. He doesn't mention those values at all. This is a big contrast to other presidents. He just says that, look, this is about business. This is about money. This is about power. This is about being allied for the sake of our pockets. He makes that very clear, and it's very jarring to hear this, because this is exactly what Islam is telling us the end of times are going to be dictated by. The end of times, prior to Yawm al-Qiyamah, prior to the last day, the signs of that coming day are that the Muslims are going to be extremely concerned about wealth. The Muslims are going to be extremely materialistic. And this is why Muslims are going to turn their backs on Islam. And the Prophet ﷺ has said in multiple hadith that what he is most concerned about for the ummah is not poverty, that we will be poor, that we will have no means, that we will be hungry. That's not what the Prophet ﷺ said is his concern for the ummah. Look, his concern for the ummah is that we will be rich, that we will be wealthy, that we will put money at the top of our priorities above religion, above Islam, above our Muslim brothers and sisters, above our Islamic values, above the akhirah. That is the number one concern that the Prophet ﷺ has for the ummah. Because when you prioritize your pocket, then you're going to be much more willing to sacrifice unity and alliance with other Muslims. If you prioritize Islam, and you prioritize al-wala wal-bara, loyalty and disassociation of the critical Islamic values, even if it's going to hit your bottom line, even if it's going to cost you money, you are still going to stand by your Muslim brothers and sisters. That is what can make the ummah strong. That is what makes the ummah impervious to outside invasion, occupation, extermination. So it's very interesting that the number one thing that Donald Trump is talking about in this 51-minute speech, he's standing there in front of all of these billionaires, Muslim and non-Muslim billionaires, all of these Zionists, the CEO of BlackRock, the CEO of OpenAI, Jewish Zionist billionaires coming to put their money in Saudi Arabia. Donald Trump is talking about prosperity and the difference between countries that align and people that align with the U.S. and Israel and those who go against the U.S. and Israel. Look at what he says.
Constructing the world's tallest skyscrapers in Jeddah and Dubai. Tehran's 1979 landmarks are collapsing into rubble and dust. They had it going for a little while under a much different system, but those buildings are largely falling apart, falling down, while you're building some of the world's biggest and most incredible infrastructure projects, buildings, all sorts of things you're building that nobody's ever even seen before. Iran's decades of neglect and mismanagement have left the country plagued by rolling blackouts lasting for hours a day. All the time you hear about it. While your skill has turned dry deserts into fertile farmland, Iran's leaders have managed to turn green farmland into dry deserts as their corrupt water mafia, it's called it the water mafia, causes droughts and empty riverbeds. They get rich, but they don't let the people have any of it. And then, of course, there's the key difference at the root of it all. While the Arab states have focused on becoming pillars of regional stability and world commerce, Iran's leaders have focused on stealing their people's wealth to fund terror and bloodshed abroad.
So,
he
mentions things that are very relevant to anyone, or very obvious to anyone who knows about signs of the end, Yawm al-Qiyamah, Asharat as-Sa'a, the signs of the end of time, mentioned in hadith. So, for example, he mentioned the building of tall buildings. This is the famous hadith Jibril, where Jibril alayhi salam, the angel, asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when is the hour? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the questioner, or the questioner knows as much as the questioned. The person asking the question knows as much as the one who's being asked, meaning nothing. However, there are signs, and one of the signs, I will inform you about its importance when the shepherds of black camels start boasting and competing with others in the construction of higher and higher buildings. So they're boasting. This is what Donald Trump is doing. This is what these Arab rulers are doing. They're boasting about these massive buildings. Which one is going to be built taller than the other? New development projects. Because of the billions that are being invested into the country, they're pouring all of this money. So this is very fascinating that Donald Trump would talk about this as one of the crown jewels. Like, this is what really distinguishes the good people, the good Muslim countries, from the bad Muslim countries, is the building of tall buildings, the prosperity, the stability, the wealth. And then, of course, we know another hadith that has been collected in Sahih Muslim, that Ad-Dajjal, the Antichrist, in the end of times, he'll come to people and call them to his obedience, and they will affirm their faith in him and respond to him. He will then give command to the sky, and it will send its rain upon the earth, and he will then send his command to the earth, and it will grow vegetation. Then in the evening, their pasturing animals will come to them with their humps very high, and their udders full of milk, and their flanks stretched, because they've eaten so much. He will then come to another people and invite them, but they'll reject him, and he will leave them in barren lands, and without any goods and chattel. So they are going to be left with famine. They're going to be left with drought. They're going to be left economically sanctioned, essentially. He would then walk through the wasteland and then say to it, bring forth your treasures, and the treasures will come out and follow him like swarms of bees. So even the wealth is going to follow the Dajjal out of these lands who reject the Dajjal, who reject the Antichrist. So I'm not saying that Donald Trump is the Dajjal, is the Antichrist, but we know that the Dajjal is going to come into a world that is already ready to accept him. He is going to come, the Antichrist is going to come into a world that is there like a platter, prepared for him, so that he'll be able to rule and he will be able to misguide people and convince people that not only is he the Messiah, he is not only the Son of God, he is actually God himself. And many will follow. Many will follow this Antichrist, the false Messiah. But that will happen with precursors. There are things that will evolve and will change in order to be the context in which the Dajjal will appear, will emerge for his mission on earth. So it is not a stretch to say that what we are seeing happen in the Middle East, what is happening in Israel, what is happening in Palestine, and the situation of the Muslims in the world, this is a precursor to the coming of the Antichrist in a very clear way. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that these are the things that Donald Trump mentions when he's talking about the prosperity. He's talking about the good Muslims and the bad Muslims. The good Muslims are the ones that are following the United States. They're normalizing with Israel. They're economically viable. They're going to experience prosperity. They're going to experience all of this development as marked by higher and higher buildings and architectural wonders. And those who reject, those who focus on terrorism, those Muslims who are the terrorists or the supporters of terrorism, meaning they oppose Israel and they oppose the U.S.-Israel plot to genocide Muslims and to wipe out Islam off the face of the earth, those terrorists, they're going to be left in barren wastelands. Their cities are crumbling. They are faced with drought. They are faced with plague. They are faced with famine. They are faced with complete and abject poverty. Do you not find this compelling? Or do you not find this more than coincidence that this is how he talks and he describes the situation in the Middle East? I think it's very telling and compelling. So that's the other point that I wanted to make. And then the final point, is the US going to finally go to war with Iran? And I mentioned at the beginning of the show that this supposed break between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, this is all a ploy, this is all a show. And one theory is that Donald Trump, like, this is a planned psyop basically to get Iran to lower its guard, for Iran to be lulled into a sense of complacency and think that, oh, Donald Trump doesn't want a full-scale war with us. Donald Trump is not interested in engaging in this war. So they lower their guard. They lower their anticipation. And that provides exactly the opening that the US and Israel needs to strike hard and strike fast and strike hard at Iran's nuclear infrastructure and completely destroy it, which will involve not only an aerial bombing campaign, but also potentially a ground operation, possibly certain elements that are embedded within Iran as spies to sabotage their nuclear program and finally destroy it in a way where they can't recover. And then ultimately to spark regime change, which will topple the Iranian government. Perhaps this is what is happening, that this is just a psyop. Trump is signaling that, oh yeah, I'm completely against war with Iran. I want diplomacy. That's not what you were saying a month ago. That's not what you were saying at the beginning of your presidency. That's not what you were saying with all of these appointments of the most hardcore anti-Iran neocon Zionists, filling your cabinet up with the most anti-Iran neocon Zionists. You signal the exact opposite, that you want war, that you are headed to war with Iran, one way or another. So this could all just be like a psychological operation to lull Iran into a false sense of complacency and then have enough of a window to strike. And then that would explain to a great deal why Trump is going to the Middle East right now. And he's going to the Gulf countries. These Gulf countries are the ones who are most concerned about these strikes on Iran, other than Iran itself, obviously. If the United States bombs Iran, Iran has all of these ballistic missiles, literally thousands, tens of thousands of ballistic missiles pointed at the oil infrastructure of the Gulf. They have promised to shut down oil production for the entire world, which will cause a massive economic collapse globally, but certainly for these Gulf countries. So the Gulf countries are maximally concerned about a potential strike in Iran. Donald Trump is visiting all of their economic centers, giving them assurances, giving them these massive deals, these massive security deals with weapons and technology, AI technology, entrenching the U.S. further and deeper into the Gulf. And that may be because he's providing them reassurance that, don't worry, you know, this attack is going to happen, but you're going to be protected. One way or another, you're going to be protected. And as a show of good faith, we're going to bring all of the billionaires, all of these most powerful billionaires in the U.S. are going to come, technology billionaires, and show that they're fully invested in your country. So even if your oil is sabotaged by Iranian ballistic missiles, there's other sectors of your economy that will thrive and that will provide enough of a bubble, enough insulation for you to not suffer too drastically from backlash from Iran. This is arguably, my suspicion is like this is actually the purpose of Trump's visit and his tour of the Middle East, because a strike against Iran is imminent. And yeah, this is what Israel wants. Like, this is what Israel demands, and there is a very limited window of opportunity that Israel has to eliminate Iran and become the hegemon of the Middle East, as it has always wanted to be. Greater Israel, the sole superpower of the Middle East, as a bridge between Asia and Europe and Africa at the intersection of three major continents, without any rival, without any regional rival. The last piece of the puzzle is eliminating the Iranian government, the current Iranian government, and replacing it with, you know, someone like Jolani, someone like Ahmed Shara. That's what we need. And Donald Trump is their last hope to actually do this. So I think they've made this kind of gambit. They've made this this kind of psyop move. Oh yeah. Oh, Donald Trump is not on speaking terms with Netanyahu. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure that's what's happening. Magically, Donald Trump has become his own independent person, like in the last week, and all of the Zionist media are reporting this as if like this is real. Yeah, I'm sure. I really believe that. Well, okay, well. Yeah, that's what people need to understand, is that the Middle East is so critical for the United States economically, like not just because like it's bad enough that these Middle Eastern countries are making like $1 trillion investments in the US. They're making these $1 trillion guarantees. UAE, Qatar, Saudi, they're saying we're investing $1 trillion in the United States AI infrastructure or weapons or whatever. Like, that's bad enough that you're taking the Ummah's money, the money of the Ummah, and instead of doing something to help Palestine, you are investing it in the country that is responsible to a large extent for genociding Palestine. That's bad enough. But the bigger economic significance of the Middle East to the United States is that is the significance of the petrodollar. That Saudi Arabia and these Gulf countries agree to accept dollars for oil, and they will not accept to the same degree other currency. This means that the dollar maintains global supremacy as the world reserve currency. That can only happen with the agreement of the Gulf states. And that's why the US doesn't leave anything to chance. The US doesn't leave it to chance that one day the king of Saudi Arabia is going to wake up and decide, yeah, I think I'm going to start accepting rubles. I'm going to start accepting other currency, yuan for oil, for barrels of oil. They're not gonna. The U.S. is not gonna leave it up to chance. That's why they have all of these military bases established with tens of thousands of personnel, U.S. personnel there in those countries, ready to ensure that America's will is realized. And there's absolutely no resistance to this state of affairs. So it's very critical it's very obvious why the U.S. is never going to relinquish control of the Middle East. The only thing that would result in the U.S. relinquishing control is if the U.S. collapsed, and they literally can't afford to maintain military bases in the Middle East. That's one scenario. The other scenario is that no longer is oil relevant. Like there's no more need for petroleum. And so it's not really necessary to maintain, like petroleum is not going to be the basis for the global reserve currency, the world reserve currency. So that's the second scenario. But neither of those scenarios seem to be very imminent. So domination of the Middle East will continue. Subjugation of Muslims will continue. Subjugation of any kind of Islamic movement will continue until something major happens. Nothing gradual, unfortunately, is going to change the situation. If that were the case, like if gradualism was going to bring an Islamic golden age and a reestablishment of the Sharia and Islamic governance in the world, if that were the case, we've had that kind of gradual Islamic awakening since the War on Terror. Things have improved seemingly for at least 10 years, at least a decade. And what has that resulted in? Do we see any kind of, if we're not able to prevent Palestinian children from starving, then what real Islamic alternative has been created? Like, how much progress have we really made in terms of an Islamic awakening in the world? Like, is it an Islamic awakening that actually has made tangible changes? And I'm not a materialist. Like, I think that there is a lot to say about a spiritual awakening, but I'm also skeptical about how much of a spiritual awakening there is even in the Ummah. Like, I'm sorry, I'm blackpilled on a lot of these issues when I see the way that Muslims behave and how they act, like the kinds of things that they cheer on. Like they're really celebrating Donald Trump going to the Middle East. These are people who are against, they're not Medkhali, they're anti-Medkhali, they're anti-Gulf rulers. They're celebrating that Donald Trump is making deals with Ahmed Shara and the Syrian revolution and lifting sanctions. It's just that's a kind of blindness. Like that's a kind of spiritual blindness. Allahu alam. It's just shocking. Okay, so now I'm gonna look at the chat. I'm going to read some of your super chats, inshallah. Kugorin, appreciate your super chat. I was told that Jolani would implement the Sharia. Guess I was fooled. LOL. The current state of the Ummah is just so pathetic and sad. God save us all. Yeah, I have similar sentiments. Mesa says Giuliani did not disappoint. He showed his true colors. Traders SZ, appreciate your big super chat. Thank you. No comment made. Gary says stop calling him Shara. It's Goilani, Giuliani. Okay. SYA, how are you doing, brother? Appreciate your super chat as always. Kanye, if they made money off me saying Hitler, they would have let me never take morals from the hypocritical West. Yeah, isn't that surprising double standard that you have Kanye West making this video or this song praising Hitler, and this has to be banned. This is unacceptable, but you have plenty of music, art, movies that denigrate traditional values, denigrate religion, promote atheism, promote the most abject debauchery, promote even killing, violence, perversion. All of this is promoted without any restriction. But if you blaspheme against one particular group, then you have to shut it down. You have to shut down all of the digital streaming platforms have banned his song. And obviously, I'm not encouraging you to go listen to music, but they've banned this song where he's praising the World War II leader of Germany. So, like, it's such a blatant double standard, and there's like a tipping point, because if you're too over the top with your double standards and what you shut down and what you ban, then that has the opposite effect. It has, I don't know if this is exactly like the Streisand effect. The Streisand effect meaning that if you really go against something in terms of banning it or protesting against it, that has the opposite effect of amplifying what you're trying to ban. So maybe this is the Streisand effect happening there, but I'm trying to point to another level of this phenomenon, that the double standard is so blatant that it actually causes anger in people who otherwise wouldn't care. Like, I wouldn't care about what some particular Black American artist or songwriter is put out. I wouldn't care, and even if there was controversy around it, I might note it, but I wouldn't necessarily care. But in this case, the controversy is about this blatant, over-the-top double standard that makes me just more shocked, more resentful, more aware of how unjust this system that is we're all subjugated under really is. So it's even more than the Streisand effect. So I think that's what's happening with his new song, praising Hitler. Here's another super chat. Amin says, good points. Why did he rule Idlib with Islam? So this is, you're referring to Jolani. Why did he rule Idlib? Like, that's the thing. Like, anyone can be an Islamist when you don't have power. Like, anyone can be an Islamist when you're just trying to rally support and you're trying to establish a base. The true test of whether you are committed to Islam, you're committed to Islamic values, you're committed to the cause of Islam and Muslims and the Ummah, the true test is when you are successful. You are able to take over a country. You are in a position of power. And then at that point, we'll judge you based on your actions, not on the basis of your stated intentions or your flowery language or the kind of limited actions that you took in a given context. Like, if we're going to judge Jolani, why are you stopping with his having control amongst other groups in Idlib? By the way, HTS wasn't the only group in Idlib. It was other groups as well, other rebel groups with HTS. But even putting that aside, why are you stopping your evaluation of Jolani's past just when he was in this period of controlling Idlib? What about his time with ISIS, with Al Qaeda? Like that, does that factor as well? Like, if we want to be fair, like, I'm fair enough in saying that, fine, he turned a new leaf, he rejects ISIS, he rejects that deviant ideology, and I'll judge him since then, and I'm willing to even overlook everything before his time as the de facto president of Syria. But what has he done since being the de facto president? It's been 6 months. It's been half a year, and there's just been all of this nonsense, just nonstop, bad decisions. The country is being occupied and bombed by Israel, and he's doing everything to go the opposite direction of what needs to happen. Mesa says you can get freedom only through belief in La ilaha illallah. Yes, I agree. I can't see. Hasp, appreciate your super chat. What hope do we have? What series of events could unfold now for the liberation of Palestine and Muslims everywhere? Gulf rulers have a secret plan. Turkey will do something, or we wait for Imam Mahdi. I was more optimistic, you could say, even 3 months ago, even 6 months ago. I was more optimistic, but you know, if and you can't really take away criticism from Iran, because Iran could be doing a lot more. And you might remember last year, I was very black-pilled. I said, like, what's going on? Israel had they had this pager attack, killing and maiming hundreds of Lebanese. And Iran and Nasrallah was bombed and assassinated, and the country was in ruins, smoldering, smoking. Where's Iran? Iran is not doing anything. It's a very black pill. I was very critical of Iran, but then they launched True Promise, Operation True Promise 2, the second one, and you had all of these ballistic missiles, hypersonic ballistic missiles that were able to hit Israeli air bases very accurately and caused a lot of damage and casualties. We can't really know. People say, oh, Iran hasn't killed any Israelis, any IDF. We don't know that. Israel is not reporting that. Those casualty numbers can only be known by Israel reporting it, and they obviously had a media blackout. No one within Israel was allowed to report on the damage that was caused by Operation True Promise 2. Obviously, Israel wants the world to think that this attack was completely ineffective. But all indications were that it was an effective attack, and it could form a effective deterrence against Israeli aggression. But we haven't seen anything follow up. We haven't seen any follow up from Operation True Promise 2. There was supposed to be Operation True Promise 3. There's been nothing. So where is this deterrent power? Especially now that the IDF is poised for a ground invasion to clear out all of Gaza. Like, if there is an opportunity, if there is a time to actually exercise deterrent power, if you truly care about the Palestinians, it would be now. Like, I think now would be a good time. I think there's no time like the present. But there's nothing. Iran is doing nothing. And maybe that is part of like these ongoing negotiations, indirect negotiations with the United States, where Iran is meeting with U.S. diplomats in Oman, also Rome. They've had 4 or 5 sessions already. They have set like a session once a week. The past session was delayed, and maybe that's just to give Iran this kind of sense of complacency that, oh, maybe we're going to work a deal out. We're going to work out a deal with the United States, some kind of nuclear deal that's on the table, even though that deal is never going to happen for a bunch of reasons. Another deal between the United States and Iran that they had in the Obama era, that's not going to happen. And Obama was able to broker a deal with Iran, where Iran was going to open up its nuclear program to international monitoring. They're going to limit their enrichment, and they're going to have full transparency with the international investigators to make sure that nothing was going to be weaponized, no nuclear material was going to be weaponized to develop a nuclear weapon. And in return, the U.S. was going to lift certain sanctions. Not all sanctions, just certain sanctions. So that was the deal. And then when with Obama, and then Trump took office, and Trump ripped up the deal, and he unilaterally pulled out. So now, you think that Trump is really serious about creating a new deal with Iran? And Iran has even more of a reason to develop a nuclear weapon. Iran has even more of a reason to be suspicious to the United States and hostile to the United States, given everything that's happened since Trump has been in office, the first term and now his second term. So do you think that Trump is really serious about a nuclear deal with Iran, or is he just stalling? He's giving Netanyahu time to finish the job in Gaza, to finish the ethnic cleansing within Gaza, and make a lot of headway within the West Bank without Iran attacking. And from what I can tell, Iran is falling for it, hook, line, and sinker. So I criticize Iran as well. Iran, for many reasons, but specifically on the Palestinian issue, like, it's been a huge disappointment. So what kind of series of events are going to unfold? Only Allah knows. That can turn around what's happening. Only Allah knows. Maybe it is. Like, that's kind of a cliche to say that we have to wait for Imam Mahdi to come. It's a cliche, but maybe that is. We're reaching the point where the only thing that's left is for the Mahdi to emerge, to appear. So, and as I said in previous episodes, the main question with the Mahdi is, are you ready to accept the Mahdi? Because many indications that the Mahdi is not going to he's not going to be falling into these kinds of sectarian buckets and allegiances and alliances that the Sunni Muslims of today, unfortunately, are categorizing the ummah, or cutting up the ummah into. So, Allahu Anam. I understand. I get it. I'm black-pilled too. Why did Julani rule with Islam in Idlib? I already answered that. Appreciate the big super chat. Muhammad, appreciate your super chat. May Allah preserve the ummah from all the fitan. We must always remember to make supplication against the fitna of Dajjal during every prayer. Absolutely correct. Tariq says, sincere question, how can we Western Muslims living comfortably and safely, earning high incomes, eating, call for such radical change in the Muslim world? This is a sincere question. Like, what I've proposed is radical change. Will we drop our life and go out there to help? Okay, listen, first of all, nothing that I have called for is radical change. Like, not allowing Palestinians to be genocided, like that's a radical proposition. Like having a Muslim world that is not under the boot of the United States and Israel, like that's a radical proposition. We're calling for radical. Oh, I'm calling for radical change. Like Daniel, you're a radical. Like what we have already in the Middle East, like that's just fine. What you're proposing is just so beyond the pale. Like, what do you mean that this is a radical change? Like, this is the bare minimum that Muslims can survive, and Muslims cannot be subjugated, and Muslims cannot be forcefully liberalized and secularized, and Islam will be preserved. Like, I think that's the goal that every Muslim should have. It doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor, you're living in the West, you're living in the East. It doesn't matter. That should be the goal that every Muslim has for the Ummah. And for you to characterize that as, oh, this is a radical proposition, and how could you, how could you propose such a thing? Like that's, I don't understand like what you mean by that. How is it a radical proposition? Now, if you mean it, oh, it's hypocritical for Muslims to be in the West or to be in other countries, like why don't you get up and go? First of all, do you understand that all of the access points, all of these countries that surround Palestine are controlled by these governments, and all these governments by force prevent anyone from being able to enter or even approach Palestine or Israel? Do you not understand that? First of all, so even before you have any chance to even think about physically going somewhere to do something, it's going to be blocked. It's going to be prevented. So get that through your thick skull. Second of all, people who criticize me for being in the United States, do you want me to go and live in one of these Middle Eastern countries where if I say 1% of the kinds of things that I'm talking about now, I will be disappeared and put under the dungeon? Do you really think that that's smart for me to do? Do you think that's smart for people who are advocating for Palestine in the West? Do you think it's smart for them to go to the Middle East so that they can be buried in a dungeon because these governments are at the beck and whim of the U.S.-Israeli intelligence apparatus, military apparatus? Do you think that's a smart thing to do? So that's point number two. So I don't, on multiple levels, what you're saying is completely stupid. If there was an opportunity for just a random Muslim to go and do something, then you have millions of Muslims that are within miles of these countries. They literally cannot physically do anything because you have their governments making deals with the United States and by extension with Israel to keep their populations controlled. To keep their populations controlled by force, so that if they even think of doing something in support of Palestinians and against Israel, they will be killed or they will be disappeared, they will be thrown into dungeons, literally, and tortured. Danny, wake up. The Iranian regime is very corrupt. Wow. Oh, you're blowing my mind. I thought the Iranian regime was, the most pure-hearted, righteous Muslim government that can ever be imagined. Like, you have the Khulafa Rashidin, and then under that is Khamenei. That's what I thought. That's always been my understanding. Isn't that your understanding? Wow. Brilliant point. Oh, the Iranian government is corrupt. Oh, wow. I did not know. Fahad, appreciate you. Can you please PBD? Can you please address PBD? He has been spewing RSS ideology for weeks now. Is PBD even relevant? Like, are Muslims still listening to Patrick Bet David? Maybe I've put stuff out analyzing his BS before, but maybe he needs a refresher or look at some of the other things that he's been putting out. Okay, guys. Any final call for comments? Okay. Really appreciate everyone who contributed super chats. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Comment if you haven't already. And subscribe to our newsletter. The link to the newsletter is found in the description below. Inshallah, we are going to start a new season of Haqiqatjou. We had 56 episodes. I consider that to be season 1. We're going to have season 2 because it's been a year since we've had Haqiqatjou. I think it's good to have a refresh. Season 2, I'm going to, change some of the graphics. Maybe slightly try another format with Haqiqatjou. And when I do that, hopefully next week, you can give me your feedback, what you like, what you don't like. Well, that's coming up next week. And if you're interested in me doing an analysis of India versus Pakistan and the Kashmir situation, let me know in the comments. If you're interested in that, I can dedicate a show to that topic. And don't forget, not tomorrow, but on Friday, in a couple of days, I'm going to have a debate, Islam versus Hinduism. Should be a very interesting and exciting debate. A lot of material I'm going to be presenting that I haven't presented before. A lot of fresh material. And this is going to be the second debate that I'll have with a Hindu. The second debate looking at Hinduism. I've debated multiple debates on Christianity, multiple debates on Judaism, and now multiple debates on Hinduism, atheism. I've also debated. So it's good to have a good variety, have a variety of topics to address in debates and present arguments that you will find useful in your own dawah, in your own conversations, in your own formal and informal debates. Maybe we'll be eating some beef. I don't know. I don't know how the conversation is going to go. Will it be respectful or is it going to turn dicey? We'll see. But I'm looking forward to it. So, okay, guys, we will see you, inshallah, on the next episode of Haqiqatjou. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.